the new movement faced a major crisis over its future. The question was, how strictly Jewish should it remain? All the church leaders were called to Jerusalem to decide the question. One man took the final decision.
This whole thing came to a head in the Council of Jerusalem. The issue is settled by James. James has the last word, and it's James who provides a scriptural argument from the Old Testament that the Messianic people of God will include Gentiles as Gentiles, not having to become Jews. James is responsible for that. Without James, that may have continued to be a huge rift, a huge debate in the Christian church. James settles it. It's scarcely ever debated again.
The followers of Jesus' new movement had a stark choice between two versions of Christianity. One based on the visions of Paul, a man who had never met Jesus, and the other, the original Jewish form, championed by James and the family of Jesus. The problem was that as more and more non-Jewish people converted to Christianity, the more marginalised James's Jewish Christians became. Evidence of Christianity's Jewish origins can be found on the slopes of the Mount of Olives, where there is an ancient cemetery containing the remains of thousands of religious Jews. In 1953, during routine building work, a huge complex of graves was revealed dating back to the 1st century. There was even speculation they could contain the bones of some members of the very early church. This was an incredible discovery, an ancient tomb on the Mount of Olives containing hundreds of ossuaries, bone boxes. They also found inscriptions of ancient biblical names, names like Simon, Martha, Mary, Joseph, and even Jesus. Some of these could have been members of the first Jewish Christian community here in Jerusalem, led by James. But the important thing to remember is that they're buried here as Jews, not as Christians. Some of the bone boxes have crosses engraved on them. One theory is that later Christians carved them in an attempt to Christianize their Jewish occupants.
Judaism became very unpopular after the Great Roman War. There was a tax put on Jews, and for someone to say, "I'm Jewish," did not necessarily draw a favorable response. Oh, you're one of those hidden enemies of the emperor and of the empire. And the church disassociated itself from the Jews. If you'd ask James, "What are you?" he would say, "I'm a Jew. I follow the God of Abraham, and I follow the leadership of my teacher, my brother Jesus." If you go forward a couple hundred years and say, "What are you?" "I'm a Christian who believes in the heavenly Jesus Christ, Virgin Mary, Mother of God, and there's no family. The family's lost, forgotten, blotted out, totally irrelevant to this, I would call it, new religion."
One event proved catastrophic for James and the Jewish Christians' control of the early church. In AD 70, after a bloody revolt, the Romans captured Jerusalem and destroyed the focus of their faith, the great Jewish temple. For the last 30 years, Israeli archaeologist Professor Ronnie Reich has been investigating this calamitous event.
The destruction of the temple for Jews would be like the equivalent of Mecca being destroyed for Muslims and the central focal point just being wiped out.
Yes, exactly. This would be a total catastrophe. End of the world, as we would say, for that people. For those who were slain, we have the description of Flavius Josephus in his book on the history of the Jewish war against Rome. He tells us that the Romans entered to the residential part of Jerusalem, and he says rivers of blood were extinguishing the fire, the flames. So much blood was there. We found in one house, we call it the burnt house, the bones of an arm of a young girl, about 25 years old. Only the arm, up to the elbow, cut at the elbow. And this, of course, depicts the drama very vividly. Somebody cut it off, and the rest of her body was not found in the vicinity.
So in the same way that when the temple is destroyed, Judaism is destroyed, has to reconstitute itself. We could say that these Jewish Christians who are around, there's also a shift in power. They then have to rethink the focus of their faith and what they do next, because there is no temple.
Well, those who were facing the Romans as soldiers, etc., were slain. Others fled to the desert, and the rest were taken as captives to Rome.
The destruction of the temple and Jerusalem dealt a body blow to the Jesus family's control over the new Christian movement. In one fell stroke, they lost their headquarters and the focal point of their faith. The initiative was now handed to the followers of their arch-rival Paul, and the center of operations moved from the small country of Palestine to the center of the known world, the capital of the Roman Empire.
The sacred treasures from the temple in Jerusalem were paraded in triumph through the streets of Rome, an event immortalized in the famous Titus Arch. And the looted gold was used to pay for Rome's most famous landmark, the Colosseum. The downfall of James's Jewish Christianity was now complete, and Paul and his followers took over the new movement. The best evidence for this is found beneath the streets of Rome, where there's a huge complex of ancient burial sites, the Christian catacombs. Raffaella Giuliani, the chief inspector for the Vatican's Commission for Sacred Archaeology, agreed to show me an incredible new discovery.
During the summer of 2003, a large gaping hole opened up on a private property. While we were clearing away the debris from this caved-in area, we gradually began discovering hundreds and hundreds of skeletons, placed neatly on top of one another. The anthropologists have made an initial estimate that there are approximately 1,200 people there. The care with which they were buried and their proximity to the rest of the catacomb would lead me to think that they could be among the first evidence of Christianity in this area.
Già dei primi, testimoni del cristianesimo in quest'area.
What can we see here?
Possiamo vedere appunto questi scheletri.
These skeletons could be the remains of some of the earliest converts to Christianity ever found in Rome.
What do the catacombs tell us about the success of the Christians in Rome?
Well, the catacombs are a unique testimony from that point of view. The extreme size and colossal growth of these subterranean necropoli are proof of the strength and spread of Christianity, of the fact that there was an ever-increasing number of neophytes, new believers, who were joining the community.
The catacombs are also renowned for their ancient Christian art and their portrayal of famous Christian leaders such as Peter and Paul. I wondered if there were any images of Jesus' family and his brother James.
Purtroppo no.
Unfortunately not. No, we don't have any images of that kind in the catacombs.
When the focus of the Christian movement was moved to Rome by Peter and Paul, the sheer number of their new converts was the death knell for the Jesus family's control of the new Christian movement.
Paul's vision of Christianity went beyond the boundaries set by Jesus' family. While they remained narrowly Jewish in their outlook, Paul wanted to reinterpret this new movement to appeal to a global audience. Although Paul had never met Jesus and only joined the movement after his death, he claimed to have spoken directly to him through a series of visionary experiences. For Paul, faith in Jesus and belief in his atoning sacrifice meant the forgiveness of sins and the promise of eternal life. It was an incredibly powerful message.
And it's Paul's version of Christianity that is still with us today. Everywhere you go in Rome, you are reminded of who won the struggle for control of Christianity. The losers, James and Jesus' family,